Hello everyone, welcome to yet another Buddy webinar. Today we are going to talk about how to manage WordPress at scale and we will be talking about a really big scale. So that's why, because personally I manage few WordPresses at the time, but Ryan manages hundreds of WordPresses at his company. So that's why I invited him, and he will share a lot of tricks, and he will just tell us how to do it in the right way. So, Ryan, welcome, and tell us a few things about yourself.
Hey, appreciate you having me here, Magic. I'm Ryan Sullivan. I am the COO of SiteCare. We are a professional services company specializing in WordPress management. Like Magic said, we do it at a pretty unique scale, we also have a suite of digital marketing services. But you can think of us as an outsourced managed services, an outsourced managed services provider who specializes in WordPress. I started working in this world in 2012, so have seen a lot of different things. We work. Oh, and just I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. Anybody curious about where I'm located, that's where I'm at. We run SiteCare manages. By this time next month, we should be managing roughly 600 clients, websites, and we do that with a team of 5 developers and three client success reps. So 8 people managing 600 sites. You can do a little bit of the math there and go, they must be doing some something to make that scale up from a human perspective. So I've only been in the COO role for about 3.5 months now, but before that I was leading our client success and development teams, and have kind of been with SiteCare since really the very beginning. So I don't know how much I can get in. I'll give you a really brief history of kind of how it all came together. But I started a company in 2012 called WP SiteCare, WP for WordPress, obviously. And our COO, our CEO, Drew Barton, started a company called Southern Web in 2005. So really, they were very early on in like the web, and their services were more geared toward web design, digital marketing, more traditional agency type work. WP SiteCare was very managed services. We were kind of one of the, if not the first company to really provide this proactive, maintenance service to the masses. And in 2018, our companies came together. Southern Web acquired WP SiteCare, and then we rebranded as SiteCare a few years ago. So that's kind of the very condensed short version of where how SiteCare came to be and how we brought all these clients together.
Okay, thank you for the brief history. And my name is Maciek Palmowski. I am the WordPress ambassador here at Buddy, and I am your favorite webinar host. And okay, so before we begin, if you like our webinars, do not forget to press the subscribe button on YouTube. You will be always informed about the new webinars incoming. Also, if you have any questions regarding today's webinar, you can ask them in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. It depends, of course, where are you watching us. So first, let's start with what we'll learn today. So first of all, we'll learn how to maintain those hundreds of websites without compromising the quality. We will also learn and personally, this is the thing I really can't wait to hear. How to convince the clients to follow your flow, because I know that the clients are the most problematic part of such a process. And we will learn what are the useful tools in such a process. Okay, so Ryan, yeah, you mentioned about SiteCare. So what exactly do you do at SiteCare? What services do you provide?
Yeah, so we primarily provide one part of what we do is managed managed updates of managed WordPress updates. Managed meaning they go through some kind of testing process before the live websites are updated. The and it's not just testing; it's also change control. So monitoring as updates become available, making smart decisions about how updates get released and when they get released, and making sure that the client's in the loop on any change control that's occurring with the website. So managed updates is part of what we do. Another thing we do is we do quite a bit of WordPress development, and the thing that's a little bit and we do WordPress development, basically anything that's not building new websites. Like we do a lot of feature add-ons and integration builds, and even more simple things like building landing pages for clients and that type of thing. But we provide our development services, and that's like on the technical side. And then one other thing that I really can't forget is a lot of performance optimization work. So this has obviously become a much bigger push in the last 6 months as Google's making changes to how they measure performance and their whole Core Web Vitals metric and things like that. But we do a lot in that world as well to optimize performance for our clients' websites. We also, and this is we also have a full suite of digital marketing services. I don't think we're going to be talking about that much in our conversation today, but want to get it out there that we do have teams that take care of both of those things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I worked at an agency. I had my own agency at some point, and I remember that I also wanted to take care of clients' website, because this is the constant cash flow after doing the website. But in my case, it was quite easier because, first of all, I didn't have had the scale of hundreds of websites. This is the first thing, and on the other hand, I was always responsible for the whole code. But I am sure that you are in the more difficult position because, first of all, yeah, you have much more websites at the time. And on the other hand, you have to fit into something that is already done or was just, I don't know. For example, there was a theme about on Inventor Market and on Theme Forest, and you have to do something with it. So how do you manage it? Because I know that it can be a real pain.
Yeah, so there's the code variables that you're talking about, right? But there's also so many other variables that come into play that we have to evaluate and make decisions around, right? So like of our 600, of these 600 clients, those are probably spread across 50 different hosting providers.
And hosting providers, exactly.
And so there's all of these different environments that we need to accommodate for, and that we need to, decide, like help the client decide, is this the right place for them? Should they be somewhere else? And then obviously this is not really the technical side of things, but there's the financial component of this as well. It's like, so when we bring in a new client, like to your point, almost everything we work on is inherited from somewhere else, almost everything. So when we bring on a new client, we go through a list of checks that says, what are the things that are like going to become problematic for us to manage and maintain the website properly. And we create a punch list at the very beginning and we prioritize it. We say, okay, they're hosted on a server in their aunt's basement. We literally cannot work with this. And we like step one, priority one is shift them to better managed hosting. So that's that's part of it. Another part of it is, so we go through that and we evaluate each thing step by step. We just break it into the smallest, most manageable pieces, and we take that back to the client. And sometimes that looks like, if they have a lot of technical debt, if they have a lot of pre-existing issues, if we find that, hey, this is really we can manage this, but it's going to eventually put your business in jeopardy, and here's why. When we have those conversations literally within the first few days of them becoming a client, and bring that to them. And then we put together a game plan to either refactor what's there, rip out the stuff that's bad, or convert it to something that's going to be more sustainable and more maintainable. I love, and I think I mentioned this I got to be the guest editor for the WPL's newsletter. And I think one of the things I really focused on there was, this idea of maintenance development. A lot of times as developers, I'm not a developer anymore, to be clear. Like, I lead that team. There are people much smarter on my team than I am, but it's all about features and what are the cool new integrations we're building, and what are the cool new, what's the new that we're adding. And I think one of the most nuanced and undervalued skills or talents that a developer has is being able to evaluate, okay, there's a rat's nest of code here. How do we get this to a place where it can be well maintained? And so, to your point, there's typically when a client who has a site that hasn't been well maintained or well managed historically comes to us, there's typically some upfront work that we have to go through and do in order to get it to a state where we can manage it well going forward. So it's not, there isn't a magic bullet, unfortunately, for that. There's very much some work that we just have to do. But that's how we approach that as a new client comes in the door.
Yeah, I understand it. And tell me, because as you mentioned, there is this list. There is this list you have to go point by point. And how do you convince the client to follow this list, to follow this flow? Because as we'll probably jump into this, you aren't just a company that goes to the website once per week and press update and update the plugin. You will use Git, you will use continuous integration. As you said, you have a list, so it's important for you that the code of the website is at least at some level, so it's manageable by your company. So how do you convince the client? Because I know that those talks are difficult, and I know that fixing such things also cost money. So how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of those things that is an active, even on the sales side of our conversations, we're talking about a lot of this stuff before they even become a client. So I think, part of it is start that conversation early. What we don't do, which I have seen in the industry, is bring on a client and then say, yeah, we're going to maintain your website, and then, hit them with a surprise invoice, a week later for $3,000 that says, oh yeah, we have to do this to fix everything. And then we don't do that at all. Our sales folks are very informed, and very much in the know about, hey, there's some potential risk here for technical debt. We're seeing a lot of red flags, and we actually maintain a list of, hey, here's some clues that there might be more than meets the eye here, that our sales people are familiar with and understand. So even at the very beginning, we encourage clients, if they're not ready to understand why it's important, like if they don't clearly understand why it's important to have a well-maintained website and why this proactive work needs to be done, we are totally fine. If they're not quick to adopt that mindset and see the value there, we're totally comfortable with not working with them. And that happens, right? We very much are solutions minded. We want to be able to work with them, but I'll be honest, like there are scenarios that play out where they just say, there's no, like, this doesn't matter enough to me to invest in getting the site to a better spot. The way that, if there's any so I think point one is we don't do a lot of convincing necessarily. We do more, here's our mindset, here's how we think about this. And the way that we can kind of help clients have that same mindset is to talk about what it looks like if the site isn't well managed and well maintained. An example that I like to use that I think has a lot of parallels is, not doing routine maintenance for your vehicle, right? If you own a car and you don't change the oil and you don't rotate the tires and you don't go through the regular inspections to make sure the fluids are topped up and do all of those things, people are able to connect to that pretty quickly and go, oh yeah, then I'm replacing an engine in 6 months or 9 months or a year or whatever. And I go, that's exactly right. So I think that's kind of a scenario, and like there are different classes of client too, right? Like some come in with, we have clients who come to us and say, we need to be operating at least this standard, and they will give us a technical spec that says, here's how change control works, and can you work with this, and can you accommodate this? But that's more for enterprise level Fortune type companies, which we work with. But it's and to be honest, there's a lot of those clients who are at that level from a business perspective who do not have good maintenance practices. So so we see kind of we see everything in that regard. But to get to your point, I think it's just really helping clients understand what happens if an extra level of care isn't taken. I think another example that I've brought up in the past, and this is easy for sites that have a lot of traffic or that have a e-commerce sites, especially if there's some kind of website disruption or some kind of bug that's only impacting a subset of users, like a silent killer of some kind, that means you're losing business. If it's a high traffic site like a publisher, they're losing ad revenue if the site's broken in some way. If it's an e-commerce site and the checkout doesn't work, you're not selling products. But even like checkout being broken is even an extreme example. Like what if it's just not as performant as it should be? What if it's just not as fast as it should be? We all know how impatient people are. If I try and check out and the checkout action is slower than I hope, I'll probably go somewhere else and look for it. And so those are the types of use cases or examples that I give to connect clients and help them understand why what we do has the level of importance that it does. And it doesn't always work out, but I think a lot of times it does.
Okay, yeah. And you mentioned one thing that you have this list of red flags. Could you share one or two of those?
Yeah, so absolutely. We I don't need to name and shame, but we definitely have a list of like preferred hosting providers, where and the big advantage we have, Metric, that a lot of folks don't, is we get to see like our experience with a hosting provider isn't anecdotal. We get
Mhm.
to see, okay, we have 40 clients on this web host, and anytime that we contact their support, it's a nightmare. Or anytime that the client contacts their support, it's a nightmare. Or look, we have data for 40 of these websites that shows even with optimized code, performance is lacking. And we go, okay, well, if we take 10 of those sites and we move them to another provider, look, performance boosted automatically without any other underlying changes. And so yeah, so that's one of the things we look at is where is this website hosted. We do look for honestly we do look at themes, right? Like the Swiss Army knife theme, like you kind of reference, like this is a theme that does absolutely everything. Those can be a red flag. Um, uh, Themes that rely heavily on page builders have also become particularly challenging and problematic, mainly for performance reasons. The front end that gets generated has thousands of classes on one page, that just makes it really hard to optimize for certain conditions. Another thing, but another one that is more recent, is not more recent, but we've seen more of in the last year or so, are very custom themes that are actually kind of over engineered. They're put together in a way that's extremely complex, that require one thing we'll see a lot is a theme that's put together in a very like complex structure, custom structure, and there's almost never supporting documentation for how it's supposed to work. And like even if we can get those builds running and working for those very complex themes, which most of the time we can, we still run into, okay, well, when this theme was first created 4 years ago, it was using all of these packages that have either been deprecated or abandoned or have new versions that have just been ignored, right? And so then we're scrambling to find, what are the replacement packages, are there replacement packages? So a very custom theme is another thing that we that brings plenty of technical debt along with it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I can understand it. And as you mentioned, you are not a big company, so probably you have to use also some automation to make your work not only easier, I would even just say just possible to do, because with so many websites, it would be just impossible to do everything by hand. So how do you automate your processes? Or yeah, just like that, how do you automate everything, or what do you automate?
Yeah, this has become interesting because several years ago we went down the route of approaching update management with a fully automated process. And what I say by fully automated is, um, based on Git, it would go through, we had service workers that would go through and process updates in a staging environment. Then it would run visual regression checks against um, any of the unique templates on the site, and then it would, basically give us a pass fail on any of those, on the outcome of that, and then we would do we would do some limited manual testing for functional things and things that way. And we tried to basically, it was set up in a way that with these workers that we had running, once a test cycle had completed, we could go through and say, okay, this all looks good. We're going to push it to production. One of the challenges we came across when we tried to automate it completely like that is it removed a lot of the intelligence and decision making about how to prioritize updates for a website. Let me give you an example. If a WordPress plugin author releases a security vulnerability update, that their plugin has a security vulnerability and they want to release a patch, how do you prioritize that and say, well, the bot doesn't know how to identify that differently, right? And we could have gone down the road of, identifying security releases and giving them a special type of condition, but that was our signal to like, okay, well, if it's a security related patch, we have an SLA that says we need to push that out within 24 hours. Well, is that, do we want to bundle that with these other changes that might be present? Not really. So we ended up in this liminal space of like, yes, we see the value of automation, but it doesn't allow us to continue to be the expert, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit of a long way around, but now we have what I'll call a semi-automated process where we still have the ability to process updates. Essentially, within staging environments, we can have update checks run daily. They get checked in. All of those, are checked in through Git, and then we can evaluate on a case-by-case basis and say, here are the plugins that need to be prioritized or updated, and then there is a person who is manually reviewing. There's a person. There are people on our team who do go through and manually review and say, yes, we want to process these updates, push them out. They're ready to be processed. And we tie testing to each of those two. So we do still have the visual regression component. We do still have the lighthouse checks and things that way. And we also have we've automated the functional testing. So key actions like completing a form or completing a checkout or, those types of things we do have built into a testing suite as well. But it's more of a combination of, and the other component that we had to account for, Metric, was just the client requirements. So some of the clients, they need to have internal review of any changes on their end. Mm-hmm. So, if we're fully automating the solution, it doesn't give us a chance to say, okay, pause until blank, right? So we want to, ultimately, updates are still processed by an individual, but with the actual clicking of buttons done in other ways, if that makes sense. We're controlling the release. Yeah. We're controlling the release, I guess, is the way I would put it. And yeah, that's kind of how it's put together.
Yeah, but still the human is very important. It's not something that you can automate fully. And tell me, what tools are you using in your everyday routine?
Yeah. So as far as we obviously use Buddy. We haven't been using it for long, about a year probably. But in that year, it's been transformational for us. The way that we're able to, manage a lot of this change control has been fantastic. Some other tools that we use on the development side of things. We do have Codacy that does quality reviews and standards reviews and tracks those over time for our clients. I don't know this is necessarily a tool, but it has become a daily part of our conversations, is Lighthouse, and tracking performance and accessibility and other key metrics through the Lighthouse API. We also use Ghost Inspector for a lot of that functional testing that I mentioned, and then on the actual developer side of things, the IDE that we use, it's something that users protect very much, right? That developers are very particular about. So everybody can use whatever IDE they use. We do have some standards, some linters and things like that built in. We typically use the VIP coding, the WordPress VIP coding standards and spec. That's given us good coverage for most things. And then as far as and then I do think most of our developers are using local WP for their local development for the most part.
Okay, that's great to know. Especially the local environment was kind of interesting too, because it's quite a common discussion everywhere. What are you using and why? And yes, before we'll jump into some practical examples, I have one more question, because I understand that you have many types of clients, from those who just require the basic maintenance, so keeping their website updated and working, and that's it. But also you have those enterprise clients that you mentioned. So how does the testing for each type of the client looks like? So for example, for this simple client, what do you test, and what do you test for this high-end enterprise one?
Yeah, so it does we do have different tiers of service, right? So and we set up our standards and what we test accordingly. Typically, we do have a mostly automated solution for our SiteCare standard clients. That's the entry level tool, tier of our service. Typically, our checks for that are automated visual regression. So was there a significant visual change in anything on the key templates of this site? If no, it's green light, good to go. It's fairly straightforward. For the other types of for the other tiers, we have we're doing visual regression testing, but also typically pair it with some kind of functional testing, and then we do have clients who have a custom level of service, right, where we're actually building very unique deployment pipelines and CI/CD in order to meet the standards that they require. But it's mostly a combination of pretty automated to very custom. That's the one thing that I think is kind of unique, is as much as we are a company that operates at a certain scale, we have templates that we start with, but we don't have every site could have a requirement that's just a little bit different than what a template can dictate, right? There's always some kind of edge case, and that's why, as much as we can automate things, I still love that we have the oversight and the mindfulness of real humans and engineers who say, well, this template mostly works, but we need to modify this one thing because they're using an AWS service that 0.5% of our clients use, and there's different different types of accommodations that need to be made there. I don't know if that really answers your question well, but we have different standards and different checklists that we go through for different service tiers, but we also have a good chunk that are pretty customized.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's kind of normal for those high-end clients that they have something made just for them. So this is kind of normal. Okay, so I think that it's time to that you could show us some of the pipelines that you are using. So
Yeah, I'd
I'm
love
sharing
to.
your screen. Yeah, so
I'd love to. Yeah. So this is this is actually the real pipeline for for SiteCare.com. I just wanted, and I'll kind of walk you through the individual steps and what they what they include, and some of the things we're checking for. And again, this is what's been incredibly, I use the word transformational, which is kind of a big word that sounds more important than it really is, but it's like this tool has totally streamlined the way that we can operate at the scale that we do. So so this is a pipeline that's just set up for our staging environment. We've got you can see it's connected to this branch that we have dedicated as staging. Our standard Git workflow is to branch off of off of our develop branch, create a feature branch, merge that to staging, and then once it gets merged to staging, then it'll go through these stages within the pipeline. So the first one, very easy, just it's file transfer, just moves whatever changes have happened to that staging environment. When that happens, it sends a notification to Slack. We intentionally send this first before these other steps take place, because it puts somebody from our engineering team on alert that changes are being made, and we can kind of still have a level of real human monitoring and involvement to watch through the end of the deploy process. It purges the cache at Cloudflare. You can set this to purge individual URLs, but where this is a staging environment, it's not really. We just do we just purge everything and let it go. The if is the conditionals that we have set up there is just only, and this is true pretty much every time, but it's just a condition that says if there were changes in the repository. I mean, the pipeline shouldn't really even start until that's true, but just an extra level of caution there. Then Lighthouse checks are run. We have all of our thresholds set for Lighthouse. So these are our mobile scores, and we have another set for for desktop scores. This is only running on our homepage, but again, this is just the staging site. So these Lighthouse, our production pipeline has several different Lighthouse checks for key pages on our site. And the if condition that's running here is, there's also a setting here to auto retry if the action fails. So a lot of times, if these run too quickly, so for example, the Cloudflare step, you clear out the cache and it doesn't rebuild quickly enough, the lighthouse scores aren't representative of what's true. So so if this fails, we have it set to retry at 30-second intervals a few times, just to make sure that if we get a fail, it's a true fail, and we use that. And then this last stage is to run a real user test against our contact form. Our most of our business comes through a few different contact forms on our website. Actually, I think most of it comes through one, and so this is a ghost inspector test that will navigate to that page, complete the form, and submit the form, and give us back a score of whether it passed or not. So, well, tell us if it failed or if it passed. So, these are kind of the key actions that we have set up for most of our sites, with the exception of the ghost inspector. This is more for a smaller portion of our client base uses this, but this is what a pretty typical pipeline looks like for the sites that we manage.
And could you show how Ghost Inspector looks like? Because I never tested it more. Of course, if it's not a problem.
Yeah, let me see if I can demo that. So the way that it works is I wasn't ready for this, but I'll see if I can figure out. The way that it works is you have a browser plugin, and so like I'll show you what it looks like to create a test. It's actually really neat.
Okay.
So if I'm going to create a test with Ghost Inspector, and it's this is just a browser plugin, and I just say I'm going to create a new test, and it's recording me now. So when I go to request a quote and fill in and you can pre-populate these values too, so you can have variable testing values, but this is just for the initial recording. And as you record and submit the form, and then you go to the plugin and say, I'm finished recording, and then you give the test a name. Then once that is created, once that test is created, you can go back and you can see the individual, you can see the individual, it captures all of the individual steps, and it'll, it shows here's the ID, the button ID that was clicked during the test. Here are the values that were put in, all of those different things. And you can go through and update those or modify these to insert variables or, change what the testing sequence looks like. And it gives a lot of console output on the test as well. So it's actually the so you can, this is kind of what it looks like on the back end. We failed, but only because my test was on the live site, and the staging site is where this test is set up. So but anyway, that's kind of at a very high level how it can run for this type of functional testing.
Yeah, overall it's really great, especially when you don't have any experience with it, or you just want to start. testing such things, and such a recorder is something very useful. Or also, if you don't want to spend too much time just creating all those testing suits, when you can just record them, and that's it. Yeah, it really looks amazing. Okay, yeah. So I think that that we covered everything. We have some questions from the audience. So first of all, when we were talking a bit about security, Victor mentioned that first of all, it's easy to handle security updates. His SWAF available on GitHub takes care about the attacks. He also shared the URL, so I will share it with you so you can test it after the webinar. And he also asks, do you run static analysis like PHP stan?
For some sites we do. It's not part of our entry level or baseline configuration, but we definitely have sites that require that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean I can fully understand why it's not something required for every landing page, for example. Another thing, most time consuming part is testing functionality after updates. How to save time with this? So you already showed the ghost inspector, but do you have any other tricks?
If you're doing so, that's our automated testing shortcut. For if it's the type of testing that you're doing manually, we have we have some internal configuration options that we configure and set on our staging environments. So using things like environment variables and making sure that because one of the things that inevitably ends up happening, especially if you're maintaining a secondary environment by migrating the data from the production site, a thing that inevitably happens is options that exist on the live site don't need to be updated or changed in the staging environment. So we have a set of must-use plugins that will define all of those environment variables on a per site level, and we've gone through and depending on the plugins that are active on the staging environment, it will define those values. So like WooCommerce, for example, has a lot of ways to define at a code level. Yes, this is a staging environment. Use the staging. Use the test gateway instead of the live gateway for this payment provider, or you can set those things at the code level. So we have the set of plugins to manage that, and then I find that that's the most time consuming part of testing is adjusting all of the settings to work to be proper for staging rather than production. But if all of those things are predefined and set, then the actual process of completing a checkout or completing a form or adding products to the cart is a lot more straightforward and a lot quicker. It's all of the other stuff that happens before that seems to be the most time intensive.
Okay, thank you. And another one, and the last one, I think, it's custom plugin repositories for PHP Composer. What to do if vendor doesn't provide package through API?
Yeah, this is a great question and something we ran into a lot early on. This answer might get me in trouble. I don't know, but it's something that's worked extremely well for us. So we have a let's see if I can post a comment. I don't think so, but I have. We use this library on GitHub called SatisPress, SATIS Press. It allows us to build our own composer our own plugin repository that we host, and then that can be referenced as the as the code source essentially for Composer. So and then if there's updates available or updates needed, we just manually replace the package on our own internal server, and it works out great for as many environments as we need it.
Yeah, this is also the way I always use, because it was so simple. It was just so simple to use, because SatisPress is nothing else than the plugin that converts all your plugins and themes installed on your WordPress to a Composer repository. It's really amazing and so straightforward. A really amazing solution. And I see one more question from Wale. Could you share 3 of your favorite hosting platforms to work on, specifically for client sites? I'm not sure is this favorite means favorite or the least favorite. So go for three for favorites and the least favorites.
Yeah, this question is going to get me in trouble, Wale. So no, I mean, the providers that we have had the most success with, both from a performance standpoint and being accommodating to workflows, and also on the support side of things. Like anybody who's well versed in this world knows that when they there's nothing more frustrating than identifying an issue at the environment level and going to the host and saying, hey, here's an issue we're having. We know it's not a WordPress code issue. Can you please, here's where we're seeing the issue. Here are the logs that indicate where this error is happening. Can you please fix this? And having them reply back with, well, have you tried disabling all of your plugins? It's like, no. Anyway, the hosts that we've found to be more understanding and more able to quickly identify this is something that needs to be escalated, and that have good reliable performance are WP Engine, Pagely, Kinsta. The 3 of those, and Pantheon as well, I'd also include in the same group. They have a much different workflow. A lot of the things that I've talked about are definitely doable, but doable in a different way on Pantheon. It's a whole, they bundle a lot of CI/CD into their platform as well. But those are probably the 4 that I would say we have had the most success with over the years.
And the one that gave you the most trouble, I will try to force it out of you.
Yeah, you're just really trying to get me in trouble. No, I mean, any type of low resource shared hosting provider. cPanel is a little bit of a swear word around here, just because not because cPanel is bad, but because it's typically an indicator of this is a company who's trying to cram as many websites as possible onto a server that doesn't have enough resources to run it.
Yeah, I fully understand it. Okay, Ryan, so thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge with us. Also, when we started the webinar, we asked one question on our YouTube poll. Are you outsourcing your WordPress maintenance? And everyone said no. So
I would hope that's true for this audience. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, because that's true. I'm also not surprised that this audience is trying to do it all by themselves. So this is something something really normal. Also, in 2 weeks, we will have a great webinar about documentation. Why your documentation sucks, and what to do about it with Milana Zap from XWP. If you want to stay on top of our upcoming webinars, don't forget to sign up to our Meetup.com group. It's called Buddy CI/CD group. You will be informed about every new webinar that is up incoming. And also remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You will also be informed and you have a chance to watch many interesting webinars, like, for example, this one, again, because it was very informative. So it would be great to watch it again, right? Okay, so thank you, Ryan, once again. Thank you all to everyone in the audience who listened to us, and yeah, I wish you all a great day or night, because I'm not sure in which time zone you are all in. So bye, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.